magandang umaga po sa ating mga kababayan na nanonood at nakikinig sa Davao at sa rehiyon ng Mindanao. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having us in government. I've been listening to speeches early on, and it's really kind of inspiring to listen to talks from other businesses who try to thrive despite the challenges brought about by the pandemic. While us in government talk about what we do, Commissioner Sandy spoke about what women are doing during these times. This is quite unpopular because I'll be talking about the campaign against illegal drugs in the times of COVID-19, and where it all started in Davao. Like perhaps most of us here this morning, most of us speakers here this morning, how we wish to live in Davao. But I'm quite happy to live in the Cordilleras as well because it's as peaceful as Davao. Before we start, I'd like to introduce Real Numbers PH. Real Numbers PH is the anti-illegal drugs data of the government. And where it all started, well, it started in Davao, the anti-illegal drugs program of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte. We work with the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, the Philippine National Police, the National Bureau of Investigation, Department of Justice, and all other law enforcement sectors of government. Next. We launched Real Numbers PH in May.
The Philippine National Police
There was so much attack on the anti-illegal drugs campaign, and we did so with the hope that we could showcase how the problem, how vast and how serious our problems were insofar as illegal drugs is concerned. Next, please. Monthly, we report our data. We report the activities, the number of operations. Next, please. The number of operations, the number of arrests, and the number of those who were killed during the anti-illegal drugs operations. Also, with that, we see how many number of minors are being used by pushers and addicts to push drugs, to use drugs, and those kids are being also used to send messages to other dealers, especially so during the time when and for our law enforcement agencies were so serious about catching all the pushers, especially the pusher peddlers, the small time pushers. Next, please. During this time, we had plenty since 2016 up to now, except during the lockdown brought about by COVID-19. We had our law enforcement agencies were able to seize contrabands, drugs, shabu, marijuana, and the like, and destroy dens of anti-illegal drugs activities, where anti-illegal drug activities are being carried out. Next. With this one, we also have drug clearing operations where barangays are identified as unclear barangays, where drug addicts thrive, where pushers thrive, and where communities are not safe. So with this one, we look into the data, which barangays in the region, and most of them are not from Mindanao, but in the National Capital Region. Most barangays which are unclear of illegal drugs are in the National Capital Region. And with the data here, we see how many children are being used as pushers and users, and those who look over the drug dens, and we have around 3,000 plus of them as of May 2020. Next. We not only do that, our law enforcement agencies also um, arrest high value targets. And as shown here, we have around 9,350 of them. When we talk about high value targets, these are politicians, uh, drug lords, celebrities, and armed groups, big armed groups. And we don't exclude government workers here. They are part of the high value targets, and our law enforcement agencies make it a point to be able to arrest them and file charges against them. We do this meeting regularly, and during the lockdown, it was really difficult because you would be talking about numbers, policy recommendations via Zoom, where not most of us are not used to. Um, Most of us in government were used to talking, meeting every twice every month, every uh, second Tuesday of the month, and every last Friday of the month, so we can get into how to go about with uh, the running numbers in our data, which is always being looked into by the international community, especially the media and, of course, the United Nations. So we make good with what we do and whatever that we have. Next, please. Good news is during the time of the ECQ, since March 2020 up to May 31, 2020, generally we have a considerable decrease in the number of operations, number of arrests, and number of seized drugs, anti-illegal drugs, marijuana, shabu, ecstasy, and the like. That holds true perhaps because there were no parties, especially for those who are capable, those who are some most, or if I may say, most celebrities do this prior to the lockdown, and it has really decreased so much so that we were not able to almost to seize any paraphernalia or any ecstasy and shabu during those times. Next. Recently, recently, the Department of Justice with the Presidential Communications Office have looked into having a TWG to look into cases which should which may be recommended to be filed against our law enforcement agent officers every time a death ensues during anti-illegal drugs operations. So we do have, on our part, even during the ECQ, we've been working on the technical working group to evaluate the case folders, because we do conduct multi propria investigations every time death ensues during anti-illegal drugs operations. So we had been doing this, and we are so thankful because despite the challenges being faced by our frontliners, our law enforcers, they are in the checkpoints, they're everywhere. Every time there's a lockdown during COVID, they're there. That's why we have more than 1,000 PNP personnel who are infected with COVID-19. Just the same, they're still in the front lines, trying to alleviate the ill effects of this pandemic, and to be able to implement lockdowns and checkpoints and the like. This data, the things that we do in government, the things that we do in real numbers PH, may is not just data. This represents lives. This represents a father, a son, a mother, a daughter, a lola perhaps, who was somehow part of the data. And this is part of our story as a Filipino, as a country. The campaign against illegal drug is one brave move, and we are so thankful that our eyes this time had been open so that we are able to face head on the issues we are being confronted with in the fight against illegal drugs. Now, I ask, I know that it is so difficult during this time for the business sector to help government in its fight against illegal drugs, but we would not be asking you to fight illegal drugs like helping enforcers. We would be asking if there is something that the business sector can do. We have rehabilitation centers, and PDEA had been asking for support, not just financial support, but if you can share insights and any practical guides for our uh, drug users who are being rehabilitated in our rehabilitation centers, that would be of big help. If you can use airspeed or our systems to be able to reach out to a drug addict or a drug user in and PDEA, the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, would be most welcome to partner with you during these times. We hope that despite the pandemic and despite the decrease of the users, of the pushers during these lockdowns brought about this pandemic, we hope to have a better Philippines, a more resilient one, because we always that had been always cliched already, that we are a very resilient nation, and we keep coping. We keep coping, and I don't think we would government would be the last organization to stop to be positive about all this. The government would be the last one to close downs and close its doors to its citizens. I don't even think that it would even close. So we work on, we move on, we work ahead because we are thinkers, we are movers, but we can work better together if we work with partners in the private sector. We cannot do it alone, especially during these times. So we hope anything that the private sector can do with us, we are most welcome, especially for our drug users who are more stressed than ever in the past because of this pandemic. Thank you so much, Richard. Magandang hapon po.